All right, welcome to the final review. Today we're reviewing the Talos Principle 2. I originally played the Talos Principle 1 back when it came out, and I was just like getting out of high school, getting into college. Probably wasn't the best time for me to play it because I was very much into like shooters and, oh, this isn't Call of Duty, what the fuck, kind of stuff. And which is unfortunate because I think that kind of like how Mass Effect opened my eyes to the broader spectrum or whatever of RPGs, I think Talos Principle would have opened my eyes a bit more to the, I guess, kind of like puzzle strategy genre, I guess you could say. And the Talos Principle 2 really builds upon what the first game set up. Now, I haven't played it for quite some time, probably not since like 2014, 2015, but I have watched an entire playthrough of one of my favorite streamers, YMS Plays, or Adam Plays, and they did an entire playthrough of the Talos Principle 1, and I thought it was a really interesting and just like a really intriguing game, I guess I would say. But the story was not as forward facing as I was hoping. A lot of times you had to go into like a terminal to find the story and interact with stuff in these little computer terminals. But the grounds for the next game were laid, and essentially Talos Principle 2 starts centuries. I mean centuries and centuries and centuries after the initial first game. So essentially, the robot that you play as in the first game is called the Founder. If you play one of the endings, you ascend and become a live, total AI, humanoid kind of creature, kind of robot, I should say. And essentially, this Founder robot started to help more robots come to life and start building this city. And yeah, essentially you are centuries and centuries and centuries into that. So society is kind of reformed a little bit. Being so closely related to humans, obviously cliques formed, and there's like a social media thing, and there's turmoil kind of. There's people going on strike, and even though there's only 1,000 robots in the city, it's still kind of like a mini society. Well, I guess it kind of is. I mean, 1,000 people is a lot of people, so it's pretty much formed into a general society that has its ups and downs. And the fun thing about like the opening sequence is it kind of plays through a couple ideas from the first game. Like you start off in like this Egyptian themed area and you solve these puzzles to get the Tetris pieces or the Tetramino pieces, and you do the little puzzles to open the gates for the next set of puzzles. And it's very like, oh, this is kind of like the same as the first game. And then you awaken as number 1,000, and 1,000 was the goal that the original Founder set for the city. This is our goal, is to get to 1,000 new entities, 1,000 new robots. So everyone calls you 1K, and essentially you wake up and just things aren't like, things look like it's a beautiful city, and like it kind of starts off like, oh, this is such a perfect society, and then slowly as you talk to more of the other androids around, and you start doing different tasks in the city and exploring around, you kind of realize like, oh, it's not as perfect as people would think, or other robots would think. And essentially, that's one of the main themes of this game is society. And I know it's kind of cringy to say, but it really is a theme of the game. Also, what it means to be human is a huge theme, which is like obvious. Like, of course, it's the game about robots, and they're wondering what it means to truly be human, and they're feeling emotions for the first time that they've never felt before, and stuff like that. And of course, there is other themes layered in there. But the one thing that I really like about Talos Principle 2 is how forward the story is. The story is in your face, and of course, there are things that you need to find, like secret things. There's collectibles in the world that give you more story, more backstory. More backstory for the original creators of the simulation that made robots and stuff like that, or made the trials to see if robots could become sentient, I guess. And it's really interesting. There's a lot of fun and interesting topics and things that happen in the game. game. It's a bit intense at times. It's a bit sad at times. It's all in all just a very genuinely good story. It's a perfect encapsulation of what society is, but it's just on a smaller scale because it's 1,000 robots in the city. And one of the main things that you're doing in Talos Principle 2 is figuring out if you want to support the notion that we need to surpass the goal. We need to keep building. We need to keep exploring. We need to keep doing things. Or should we keep the mindset of, okay, 1,000 is the number that'll equal us out in nature and it won't overburden the earth. So there's those two kind of dueling factions or trains of thought inside of the game, which is very interesting. And you do have the choice in the matter to sway people one way or the other, or even you yourself make decisions to sort of sway people one way or the other, just through some gameplay elements. So it's a very interesting story, and it's a very that's like the whole that's a separate interesting thing going on as opposed to the gameplay, because the gameplay is also really enjoyable and really fun. Obviously, if you know Talos Principle 1, you know that the second game, the first game, it's all about puzzles and first-person puzzle solving. There's a ton of different things you can utilize, like boxes and switches and lasers and mines even, to get through the puzzles. And I personally think that the Talos Principle 1 has more difficult puzzles associated with it, but Talos Principle 2, so far, I've of course beat them all of them, and I haven't gone and replayed the Talos Principle 1. So from my perspective, I think Talos Principle 1 has more fun puzzles. Oh my god, I'm messing this up. Talos Principle 2 has more fun puzzles. Talos Principle 1 was more difficult puzzles. And that's not to say that Talos Principle 1 is a cakewalk, because it's not. You'll still have those moments where you're stuck on something and you need a nudge in the right direction, so you pull up a guide or a video and you go, oh, okay, that's what I was supposed to do, or oh, that's where I need to put this in order to do this. And the game requires a lot of thinking outside the box, which it really ingrains in your head early on with like the first set of puzzles that you do. Because like on paper they're pretty easy, but to someone playing the Talos Principle for the first time, maybe they aren't thinking the way that I'm thinking, or so there's still cause for like thinking outside the box, thinking in 4D, trying to solve solutions before you actually implement them, because you need to think that many steps ahead, and it gets more and more complicated as it goes on. But essentially, each area that you go to, there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 12 areas that you explore with 8 puzzles in them. 8 base puzzles in them, 2 bonus puzzles, and 1 secret puzzle. So each one kind of starts off with a new concept, besides from like the final one, I guess I would say. But essentially each area starts off with a new concept. Like, here's a new tool that you can use. Here's a new thing. Like this area is all about the teleporter, and this area is all about the clones, and this area is all about the there's this like one that can absorb laser, and you can take it wherever you need to go and shoot lasers from the little orb, and there's a whole area based on that. And eventually by the end of it, it starts combining all these things together, which is really cool. I think that it really does a good job of giving you new things, keeping the gameplay fresh, keeping your mind stimulated, so that you're not just mindlessly solving puzzles, but you are actually thinking and trying to solve these puzzles that are they're making you think harder than a normal puzzle game would, I guess you would say, like Candy Crush, or name any like puzzle game here. Talos Principle 2 definitely, and 1 definitely makes you think way harder in some of the aspects of the game. And I'm not going to lie and say that I got all of them in my first try, or I did all of them without help. There were a couple of puzzles that I needed help with. I really did. I just needed that nudge in the right direction from a YouTube video or from a forum post. And I didn't use the videos for the entire puzzle. When I got stuck on a puzzle and it was like 15 minutes went by and I was like, okay, I don't know what to do. I'm stuck and I just cannot figure this out. I did have to nudge myself in the right direction a couple times, which I'm fine with admitting that, because I think that it's a good sign that I was able to solve so many without help, which is, that's a good sign of good level design. It means that, even though I did struggle a couple times, for the most part I was understanding what the game was laying down, and they don't even need to tell you anything specifically. They just kind of give you the items and let you go at it, and you can solve the puzzle in a couple different ways sometimes. So it's one of those things. It's like it's a good balance of getting a bit too difficult, but also being easy enough that it doesn't take too long to understand what the puzzle is going for. And I think that's a big thing that the Talos Principle does well. It does great, even. Another thing that the Talos Principle 2 does well is the graphics. I mean, the graphical elements in this game are really good. I mean, you kind of understand why it took so long for them to make this game, not only because they were probably play testing and creating these puzzles, but also like the graphics are amazing. And I started off with a choppy frame rate, and I was like, oh no. But I had to adjust some settings on my PC in the video settings, and that solved that problem. So I didn't have that problem for the rest of my game time with it. So if you are having like a choppy frame rate or whatever, just adjust those settings for the video. You should be good. I didn't have to downgrade anything. I was still able to run the game at a pretty high frame rate, 120 frames per second, on like the second to highest graphic tier for my computer. And it looked great. It still looked great. And there's some areas that you go to that are just beautiful areas. There's this area that's kind of in the mountains, and there's platforms on the mountain, and there's snow everywhere. It's very beautiful. There's another area that really was like an awe-inspiring moment where you use this little like transport tube to get around, and this little vehicle inside the transport tube, and you come out of the mountain in one of these areas, and there's just like a bunch of statues of these human beings holding the puzzles and holding the mountains up, and it's just such a cool jaw-dropping moment where it's like the music swells, and it's just like this really cool vista of these giants holding these structures together, and it's very cool indeed. And the other areas are nice and serene. You walk through a forest or through a marsh, or through this one area that's like a coastal area. Kind of reminded me of the dwarven area in God of War Ragnarok, where it was like there's like the sulfur mines and stuff like that. The water kind of reminded me of that, and the area kind of reminded me of that a little bit. But it was a very beautiful area, seaside area that had these beautiful water textures and beautiful landscapes to look at. So not only does it have the good puzzles and good story, it also has those great visuals. And obviously games aren't just their graphics, but for a game like this that is, in terms of gameplay, it's like, okay, I'm pressing two buttons to pick up things, and of course the WSAD to move around. Like, like how basic can you get? For games like this that are a bit more basic on the control side, they kind of need to prop up some of the game with the graphics, and I think that they did a great job of making sure that everything looked really good and really pristine. I mean, you hold something up to your face, and it just looks beautiful. It's very detailed, and same thing goes for the other robots that you meet. They are very detailed. They all have like their own unique personalities, their own unique voices. They have like this unique color scheme as well. It's a very cool system. It's a very cool game all around. I think they just did a superb job, just modeling and texture filling, and the ambient sounds are great, and the game audio design is really good too. Obviously the puzzle design is out of this world at times. Like it's just so interesting the way that you need to think to get through these things. And I really don't have any negative things to say. I mean, I guess the only thing that's kind of like a bit of a nitpick is the fact that the final few puzzles that you solve, they're like a combination of everything that you've learned, but also like you go like one side of the puzzle is a dystopian area, and the other side is the futuristic area, and you got to solve puzzles on each side together, which was cool. But it was a little easy, and also when I was transferring between the two areas through a tunnel, the game did freeze for a second every single time I did that. But that's like a very small nitpick. Like it didn't even matter in the grand scheme of things, because the concept of the idea of the puzzles was just so cool that you had to go back and forth between these two areas to solve puzzles on each area. Pretty cool. And you couldn't go you know, if you went too far in one area, it would block you in the other area, and you had to restart. And you know, it was a very nice, it was a really fun dance of, you know, trying new things and getting around obstacles. And yeah, you can restart a puzzle at any time by going back to your last checkpoint, as long as you're inside the puzzle. So that's not a problem if you soft lock yourself. They were pretty good with putting ladders in areas that could be soft. You could soft lock yourself, but there were some times where like, oh, I moved this laser deflector and it turned off the shield that was in front of me, and now I'm stuck. You know, because you were supposed to have two of these in here, and I only had one. And you know, it's one of those things. It's like, okay, I fucked up. Time to restart. And I understand my mistake. You know, a lot of times I would say 99% of the time it wasn't the game's mistake. It was my mistake when I got locked inside of an area, and it didn't happen too often, honestly. But still, it's one of those things. It's like, yeah, they definitely thought of a lot of different ways that people could get themselves stuck, and they made it so that it wasn't super game ending if you accidentally close a shield that you needed to walk through, you know, because they do have a ladder right next to you. And you know, you can't like bring things up a ladder with you or anything like that, so you know, it equalizes out there as well. But sometimes you have to restart because now my laser is stuck in the area that was closed off, and I was supposed to have it outside the area, you know, that kind of thing. And that's just the trials and errors of puzzle solving. You know, that's just human. That's the human aspect in the game design, you know. But yeah, I mean, also the music is really good in the game. Like, talk about soundtracks that really give you the vibe and really give you the idea of what this game is putting down. And it really excelled in that area too. Kind of electronic at times, very synth heavy. There's a couple of song choices that I was really happy with. One of them was when you're chasing like this purple pixel cloud, it played a specific song every time you did that, and it was a very fun, like, chase themed kind of song. So yeah, I mean, you know, on top of the visuals, on top of the music, on top of the ambiance, on top of the puzzles, on top of the story, you have a really, really good game with a just an astounding amount of time and precise placements and just a very meticulously designed game. And I loved every minute of it. I like I said, I really don't have anything negative to say other than a nitpick, but that is my honest opinion. I think that it's a fantastic experience, and if you love puzzle games, this is definitely going to be one that really tests your mettle, tests your mind. Like I said before, maybe not as hardcore as the Talos Principle 1, but still has some pretty ingenious stuff sprinkled throughout there that I really enjoyed. So if you want to check out the Talos Principle 2, I think it's available everywhere at this point. And yeah, I would definitely highly recommend this one. I mean, I'm a person who likes a lot of video game genres. I mean, just look at the games I played this year, from Street Fighter to Modern Warfare 3 to Thirsty Suitors to this game. Like, I try and hit as many genres as I can in the year, because I like to open myself up to new genres all the time. And Talos Principle 2, even though it's not a new genre per se, it is a unique experience that is building upon something that's already there, the Talos Principle 1, and it's improving it in almost every area that I can think of. So if you want to check it out, I would highly recommend it. It's like $40, which is a steal for how good this game looks, how well it runs, for how fun and long the game is. It's just one of those things. It's a steal. So yeah, I think I'm going to end up giving Talos Principle 2 a 5 out of 5. Thank you for listening to the final review. If you want to hear the whole podcast episode, the link will be in the description of the video. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.